Hey everybody, Principal Kafele here, and this is the launch of another long series. Some of you may have watched my series entitled "So You Want to Be a Professional Speaker? Let's Talk." And as I indicated in that series, it's a five-part series, 9 hours of content. It's for speakers, it's for aspiring speakers or speakers who want to elevate their game, and it's just a response to the volume of people who have asked me for advice on the speaking business, the art of speaking, etc. But I also had a series called Thoughts to Consider for becoming a best-selling author, something to that extent. And I had it on for a few years, and I decided to take it down recently, just to give you a sense of where we are today. As I'm recording, it's March 3rd, 2024. So I took it down in February 2024 because I felt the need to revise it. It had been up for many years, and I felt the need to revise it. So here we are. But I've tweaked the title to stay consistent with the professional speaking series. This one is entitled "So You Want to Be a Best-Selling Author? Let's Talk." Once again, so you want to be a best-selling author? Let's talk. There's a whole lot of folks out there that want to be best-selling authors. There's a whole lot of folks out there that want to be authors. So I decided, instead of setting up seminars in different parts of the country and charging you guys thousands of dollars to do these seminars, those of you who would be able and willing and able to pay anyway, I decided, let me just sit here at home and record what I hope will be not more than 4 hours of content to just give you a sense of what it entails if you want to be an author, whether you want to be a self-published author, a published author, whatever it is you want to do. I'm going to give you that information. So get this, get your pad or get your device, your phone, your tablet, your computer, whatever it is, and plan to take copious notes. I'm gonna give you a lot. Of course, you can rewind and rewind, but it's good to be a note taker, because there's something about the way the brain processes information when you are writing as opposed to just listening, right? So let's jump into it. I want to start with just why this series. Like, why am I even doing this? I have been an author since 1991. In fact, I wrote my first book in 1990 and I published it in 1991. And here we are in 2024. And I could confidently tell you that since 91, I've had people coming to me asking me for advice, tips on how to write a book, right? The business of writing a book, the art of writing a book, etc. So I decided, after all these years, the first series a few years ago, and now this revised series right now. So that's why. That's my reason, that's my because, that's my why. I hope that thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, will benefit from this four-part series. Secondly, why the title? I could have said, so you want to be an author, right? But I don't think any of us just want to write a book. I think we want our books to be in the hands of as many people as possible. So I said, instead of just, so you want to be an author, so you want to write a book, I said, let me just keep it real. So you want to be a best-selling author, because that's what you want. If you're watching this video, you want to be a best-selling author. There are people, I think I can say this kind of confidently, that there are people who are just excited about the fact that they've written a book, right? I got a book. So now you got this book, but all the copies are sitting in a warehouse or sitting in a basement on skids, whatever it is, and no one's buying them because no one knows that it exists. Because the author and the publisher perhaps doesn't know the business of marketing and distributing a book. Maybe doesn't know how to write a good book, right? You could have good thoughts and good ideas, but does it translate into something that somebody would want to pick up and read day after day after day after day? That matters as well. So I chose, so you want to be a best-selling author? Let's talk. That's the sole motivation for the title. Thirdly, What makes me qualified to deliver this message? What makes me qualified to deliver this message? I've written 14 books, 13 that are published. On this computer that I'm speaking to right now, there's another book. There's a manuscript that is complete, but I just haven't forwarded it to my publisher yet. So I count that as number 14 because I wrote it. It's done. But in terms of published books, 13. And of those books, four of them were self-published. Is that the number? Yeah, four self-published, and then nine published by a publisher. Of the nine, seven of them are national, international bestsellers. I write education books such as the one you see right behind me. Let me get this right, this side, right over here. Right, I'm reversed here. So right here, that's my newest as of right now. Again, March 3rd, 2024. That book is not even a year old yet, The Assistant Principal Identity. But yeah, seven bestsellers with my publisher, and I'm proud of that. And I'm hoping for more, right? So because I'm not entitling this, so you want to write a book, right? So you want to be an author, but instead, so you want to be a best-selling author. That makes me qualified to deliver this message because I'm a best-selling author, right? That means that according to whatever the standards of various different categories of bestseller, in my case, my publisher has a standard of what's a bestseller from them. And then there are other entities that have their criteria for bestsellers. So I've been able to meet those various criteria. And here I am. I've been a best-selling author for a long time. My first book that I wrote in 1991 became a bestseller with a few different criteria. So I'm proud of that, and I'm elated by it that I continue to write not only books, not only good books, but best-selling books. So I'm sharing that with you to say that's what makes me qualified to deliver this message. And then lastly, before we jump into it, my challenge to you. You decided to tune in. Now, it's interesting. These videos will be on YouTube. And YouTube gives you all sorts of analytical data. I mean, anything you want to know about a video, they give it to you. For those of you who are not YouTubers or content creators, that YouTube gives you everything you need to know about the activity of your videos. So one of the things it tells you is how long a person has been on the video, right? So I'm projecting that this video will be an hour, maybe a little bit more. But I'll put out a video and it'll be for X amount of time. Let's say, for example, an hour video, and then it may say that the average time that was spent on the video the first day may have been 30 minutes, right? That means that folks lost patience and didn't watch the entire video, or folks just didn't have the time to watch it in one setting, or the video didn't meet their need, right? So it's one or the other. But my challenge to you, because like I said before, I'm not boasting, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you, I'm telling you the facts. I'm a best-selling author. So I'm uniquely qualified to share these strategies with you, and I'm not asking you for a dime. All I'm asking of you is to watch and to implement, because that's part of the challenge. So the challenge to you, watch the video in its entirety. If you can't do it in one sitting, then do it in multiple sittings. But watch the video in its entirety, including parts 2, 3, and 4, and then implement what I say. Now everything I say might not be what you need. You take what you need, and that which you don't need, leave it there. But that which you need, take it, grasp it, embrace it, own it, claim it, utilize it. So I challenge you to do that. I challenge you to write a best-selling book. That's my challenge to you. Watch the video, write the book, write a bestseller. But before I move on, let me give you this, the parts. This is part 1. Part one is devoted to planning and organization only. That's it. Planning and organization. Because when we talk about writing a book, first you got to plan what you're going to do. You can't just, I want to write a book. Let me get my pen and start writing. Let me get my computer and start typing. Nah, it's a whole process to this. And I think that's where some people get it wrong. They don't understand the process. They just want to write, right? There's a process to this. There's an organization that has to come along with this. You got to have those organizational skills and you got to know how to plan effectively. So that'll be this video, part one. Part two, the writing process. A lot to talk about with that writing process. It's not just taking your pen again and just let me write. Nah, there's a whole process, there's a whole procedure to that. So I want to get you prepared for that as well. Part three, video three, the publishing process. You're going to use a publisher, you're going to self publish. Whatever you do, there's a process. And I'm going to share that with you in video three. Video four, the final video, the marketing and distribution process. You could write the best book ever written. Never been a book better, but you don't know how to sell it. Guess what? You'll write the best book that no one ever read, the best book that no one ever heard of. So, what I'm going to teach you then is the marketing process and the distribution process. So, there's a lot there, y'all. Planning and organization, the writing process, the publishing process, the marketing and distribution process. Let me say this one more thing to you. I keep, obviously I see myself on the screen. I'm looking at my hoodie message, preschool to prison. You may be saying, what in the world is that? If you're an educator, you're probably not. But if you're not an educator, you may be wondering to yourself, what is he wearing? Let me make sure my ringer is off. I don't want this ringing while I'm talking to y'all. I'm an educator, long-time educator. 1988 is when I started. Long-time educator. But in the schools, we're grappling with the reality of the preschool to prison pipeline. So I've been blessed to be asked to be a cast member in a documentary called Preschool to Prison. So we had a panel discussion recently in New York City, in the Bronx, after the viewing of this film by just a auditorium full of educators and aspiring educators. And they gave the cast our own hoodie, and I wear this with pride. My first documentary ever, and I wear this with pride. Preschool to Prison is the name of the documentary. So I wanted to tell you what I'm wearing so that there's no speculation as to what I have on. So let's jump into it. I got 26 points I want to give you. I've got the whole alphabet today, and then we'll be done. So here we go. Letter A. In what ways have you planned out your entire book project? Everything in life must be planned for. Again, in what ways have you planned out your entire book project? In other words, as I said in my intro, everything is a plan. Everything. Everything you do in life, practically, you need to plan it if you're going to be highly effective at it. So you think about the things you do professionally, you think about some of the things you do personally. What's your plan? You go to school, you go to college, you go to trade school, you go to some kind of school. What's your plan, right? After you finish? What's your plan for how you stay organized? What's your plan toward how you study? What's your plan towards how you approach this course you're taking or this school that you attend? There's so much planning. It's not just showing up. Nothing is showing up. If you're one that you just show up and just wait for the stimuli to come your way, you're probably never going to maximize your potential. You'll probably never perform at optimal levels because you're waiting for things to come your way as opposed to going at it. So you've got a plan and you got to stay organized. So this whole video is about how you plan. So enough said there. Let's go. Letter B. What do you want to write about? That is the first part of your planning. What's your topic going to be? What are you going to write about? Right? And see, It's easy, and I guess I'll keep saying this, it's easy to pick up the pen and start writing. But I actually know people who had so much zeal about writing a book that they really didn't have that concrete topic in their head. They just had things on their mind that they wanted to quickly put on paper. So they're writing, 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 writing. And when you do that kind of writing, when you do that kind of writing, the verbal equivalent is rambling, 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 rambling. You're just talking, right? But there's no rhyme nor reason as to what the point is you're trying to get across, because you're just talking, you're rambling, you're all over the place. But when there's a purpose for your speaking, you're able to narrow all that talk, all that unnecessary talk, and get to the point and be concise and get your message over as quickly as possible, so that if it's a conversation, they can respond without having you sitting there or standing there just blah, 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 all over the map, all over the country, all over the world, just rambling. Well, when you write, although you're very excited about writing, but you don't have a purpose for your writing, there's no underlying purpose for writing. There's no underlying or overarching question that your writing is addressing, right? So you've got to figure that out, right? Like what do you want to write about? And that's something you need to write down. And before I get to topic, you want to write down a question that speaks to what you want to write about. Every book I've written has been guided. My writing has been guided by a question, one singular question, one overarching question, right? So I'll give you an example. Um, as a matter of fact, let me just take it off the shelf. This book here, the title is actually a question. All my books, the title is not a question, but I want to use this as an example because it really makes the point. Is my school a better school because that word is a little bit larger than the others? You'll notice, and it's in yellow, so it's a lot of emphasis there. Is my school a better school because I lead it? See, in other words, all the pages of this book are answering that one question. I'm not all over the place. All the pages of this book are answering the one question. So just to compare and contrast this book, The Assistant Principal 50 Critical Questions for Meaningful Leadership and Professional Growth. So obviously it's a book for assistant principals, right? But my question, it's not a question, it's a subtitle. This was the question I wrote to guide my writing because I wanted to stay on point with a very narrow focus. So the question was, what are the ingredients that comprise an effective assistant principal? Once again, what are the ingredients that comprise an effective assistant principal? So everything I'm writing is speaking to what are these ingredients. And the book has 10 chapters, I'm sorry, 8 chapters and 50 sub questions, which are um self-reflective questions, right? So everything about this book is self-reflective. Everything about most of my books is self-reflective. So there are these 50 self-reflective questions in most of the books that I've written, and there for the reader to look within. See, this is the why of my writing, right? So I'm saying I want the reader to read the book, but I want you to consider the question that's being asked of you while you read it. But in the meantime, to guide me, what are the ingredients that comprise an effective assistant principal? So that keeps me writing on the straight and narrow. I never have to veer off over here. I never have to veer off over here. I can stay focused on this thing that I decided that I want to write about. Right. So that takes me to closely related. Why do you want to write on this topic? Right? Why do you want to write on this topic? So again, let me go backwards. In B, I said, what do I want to write about? So every book I've written is 14 different books, and no two are the same. So there were 14 different things that I wanted to address in education. So some of them are addressing the assistant principalship. Some of them are addressing the principalship. Some are addressing the classroom teacher. Some are addressing the parent, and some are addressing the student. Right. So I'm pretty much across the board, the gamut, if you will. And so if I could narrow all that to one, I'm an education writer. I'm writing about education, right? But being a little bit more specific, depending on which book I want to write about, I want to write a book to help assistant principals become better. I want to write a book to help principals become better. I want to write a book to help teachers to become better. I want to write a book to help parents to become better at what they do. See, so that's what I want to write about. But now let's go to that letter C. Why do you want to write on this topic? See, it's one thing that you want to write, but in your planning process, you got to ask yourself and you got to be locked into your why. Why do you want to write about this? Because, see, if you really don't want to write about it, you're probably not going to put forth your best effort because because that passion's not there, right? That purpose is not there. That desire is not there. That reason is not there. That why, that because is not there. And then that why is not there. See, my purpose when I sat at this computer or the previous computers was that I really wanted to help the practitioner, the leader or the teacher or the parent. I really wanted to help them to take their game to another level, to take their effectiveness to another level. Or if they lacked effectiveness, I really wanted to give them the tools, the strategies, the solutions to become effective at what they do. That was my why. Why do you want to write on this topic? So now let me go to you because I'm sure that everybody that sees these videos is not writing for educators. You know, I just can't assume that everybody's in the education space, although many of the people who will who will navigate the internet and make it to my channel or navigate YouTube and make it to my channel, chances are they may be educators because that's who my main audience is. But let's say there's some other folks out there, some educators says, hey, I got some friends in the computer science field. I got some friends in the engineering field. I got some friends in the medical field and or the automotive field or whatever field. And they too want to write a book. Well, then they may bring you over to my page, my channel. AP and New Principles Academy is the channel. So why do you want to write on this topic? You've got to be clear and it needs to be written down because your why, just like the previous, what do you want to write about? Well, your why is also going to guide your writing. See, I'm going to keep saying you can't just ramble. And when people write without those parameters, then they're essentially rambling through the writing. Right? You want to have parameters with your writing, and that's what you want to write about and why you want to write about it. Let's go. Letter D. What is your objective in writing on this topic? Meaning, what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? Well, you got to know that before you write the first word, such as in the previous two. You got to know what's your goal. So my goal, let's go to that title. Is my school a better school because I lead it? My goal is for the reader to look at that question, is my school a better school because I lead it? And to look at that content while continuing to ask themselves, is my school a better school because I lead it? I want them to use that title as a mirror, as a true to life mirror where they're looking at themselves and asking, is my school a better school because I lead it? Meaning, do I matter? Am I a difference maker? Could somebody come into my space as a principal and take my children to heights that I cannot? Because if that leader asks themselves that question and concludes that their school is not better because they lead it, then the children are being shortchanged, the staff is being shortchanged. So, my goal in writing that book was for the leader to read the book, to internalize the book, to embrace the book, to claim the book, to take ownership of the content, and to conclude that I've got to make sure that this school is a better school because I lead it, that nobody can come into my space and take this school to places that I cannot, because I am the best option for my students, staff, parents, and community. That was my goal. I want to build confidence. I want that leader's self-esteem professionally to be so high that that leader is convinced that his or her leadership matters for the students. But see, I had that figured out before the first day. See, we're talking planning and organization. I had that figured out before I wrote the first word. I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew the topic that I wanted to write on. I knew my purpose for writing. I understood, I knew the goal, the objective for writing on this topic. That matters, somebody. Let's go. Are you passionate about this topic? Let me tell you something. It's like being in school and a professor assigns a research paper. You may, depending on who you are, you may feel burdened by that. Like, oh my God. And they tell you it's got to be a minimum of 20 pages, maybe 15 pages, and X number of books and other materials cited, all that kind of thing. And you're like, oh man, this is a lot. You just want to get through the course. You don't want all that sometimes. Some people, some folks really want to do that research because they really want to delve deep into their subject area and really have a fuller understanding. But others, they just want to get that paper, right? That degree, that certification, so that they can move on with their career. So, and then you got everybody in between. So you got one, you got the other, and everybody in between. Well, see, let me tell you something. When you have a passion for what you're writing, oh man, that means you're a little hungrier. You're a lot hungrier than the one that really doesn't want to do it but has to do it. Are you passionate about what you're going to write about in this book? Like, is this something you really want to do? Is this some research that you really want to engage in because you really want to learn a few things about this topic before you write it? Is this your thing? See, these books, let me get these out here. This is not all the books I wrote, right? This is some of the books I wrote. But let me tell you something. And I'm not, again, it's not boasting, man. This is inspiration. I'm trying to inspire somebody. I can't even, there's so many in my hand, I can't even get them all open, man. I'm not, I just want to, I'm hoping if somebody sees me holding all these books and you feel inspired, like, wow, this guy, he putting the pen to the paper. Yeah, that's all that is. But see, every one of those books, every one, I was passionate about the content, right? Every one of them, passionate about the content. None of those books was a burden for me. Like, oh man, I'm just writing this because I think I can make money from it. Nah, that's the wrong attitude for any type of project. I mean, anything you do beyond writing a book, If the primary motivation is money, then you'll probably never be as great in whatever it is you do that you could be, because you put the wrong thing in front. You put the money in front. Nah, you put you being the best you in front, and the money will follow. That's always got to be the sequence. You got so in this case, we're talking about becoming a best-selling author. Well, that's what you got to put in front. That I want to be a best-selling author because I want this content to fall into the hands of the masses of people. So when you sequence it that way, or if you want to make it narrower and you think about your topic, and I just want people to gravitate, latch on to this topic. See, when you take it that way and put that at the forefront because you're so passionate about it. Like I really love this topic that I'm writing on. This is my thing. So now because of your passion for it, you're probably going to put forth your best work because you got that passion, you got that desire, you got that zeal for what it is that you're writing. But if you said, "Oh, I want to make $1 million," "Oh, I want to make hundreds of thousands of dollars," and that's where your emphasis is, then your work is probably going to suffer. So the work always comes first. I don't think you could be the best author you could be if you're money motivated first. Nothing wrong with making money, but put the project first, right? Project first. I'm gonna say it again. Put the project first. Your passion for the project. That matters. That matters. Let's go. Do you have an expertise in this topic? I gotta smile at that one, man. That's a stickler for me. How you gonna write about something you don't know anything about? And I said the same thing on the speaker videos. You get up there on the platform and you're gonna talk about something you don't know, right? You got to know this. And I might even say you're gonna talk about something you're not passionate about. It's gonna come across. But we're not talking speaking on this. You go to the other videos for that. We're talking writing. If you're gonna write about something, be an expert in it. Have an expertise. People are reading the book because they're assuming you know something about this topic. If you're gonna fake it because you chasing dollars, but you really don't know this stuff, it's gonna come across. If it doesn't, and it may not even make it to the audience because the editors may catch it first. And they'll have you doing so much editing that by the time the book's finished being editing, it doesn't even you don't even recognize it now because it doesn't look like you anymore. It looks like the editor, right? Because the editor works for the publisher, and the editor was trying to ensure that this is going to be a quality book, but it wasn't quality based on what you put out. Now, I don't care how great a writer you are, the editor is going to edit. That just goes with the territory. So I don't want you to be spoofed by that. But I'm talking about when they edit it so deeply that you don't even recognize it. It's like going to the mirror and you don't recognize who you see looking back and it's you, right? Well, it's like going to your manuscript, reading your manuscript, and you don't recognize what's written because it doesn't seem like it's yours anymore. Because that editor had to enhance it so much because the way you wrote it, it came across as if you don't know what you're talking about, right? Or let's look at it differently. You could be an expert, but you don't know how to convey that. That happens too. It happens to speakers, it happens to writers. So you have so part of this expertise in the topic is also an expertise in writing about the topic because you chose to write a book. So since you chose to write a book, you got to know how to write a book. That's a skill that you learn. That's what the editor is there for. If it's a big publisher, that's what the managing editor is there for. You have people to help you, right? There are definitely people to help you if you have if you have an have a publisher. But ultimately, you got to have an expertise in what you're writing about. You gotta know your stuff. You can't just, oh, let me write about this topic because I think this will sell. But then there's other people writing about the same topic. I'm not the only one that writes books for administrators. So if it comes across that, hey, they're a lot more thorough than Principal Kafele, then they'll gravitate to their books, and mine will sit on the shelf collecting dust. So you got to make sure that you have an expertise in what you're writing about, your topic. Know your topic. And if you don't know it, then go study it, right? But if you don't know it, then I'd have to ask you why you're writing about it. Write about what you know, right? Do you have an expertise? Let's go. We got a lot to cover here. Letter G. What level of research do you need to do or have you done on this topic? See, that's the mirror again. What what level of research do you need to do? Or what level of research have you done on your topic, on this topic? See, it's one thing you can come and write a book, but what have you studied? What have you researched? See, one of the differences with the kind of writing I do, I was a principal, right? I was an assistant principal. I was a teacher. So a lot of and I did it at, again, I don't want to come across like I'm boasting, but I did it at a high level. I have a lot of awards. I have over 150 awards in education. So I did it at a high level. So I know something about education, but I don't write about the fullness of education. I write about those areas of education that I have a passion for. And I'm passionate about leading schools. I'm passionate about certain areas in the classroom, such as um, equity, such as cultural responsiveness, such as cultural relevance, such as attitude of young people and attitude of staff. These are areas that I'm passionate about, and these are areas that I have an expertise. These are areas that I have studied over the years. These are areas that I have researched over the years. These are areas that I have examined over the years, right? So now when I write in those particular areas, there may not be a lot of reading that I need to do because of my practical experience for 21 years in the classroom and in leading schools. So there's certain things that I just have up here. There's certain things that are right here that I can just pull from. And then those things that are not there, then I go to the book, right? Then I go to the internet. Then I go to the research, whatever it is I'm gonna do to just enhance what it is that I already know. But the question to you remains the same. What level of research do you need to do? Or what level of research have you already done on the topic you will write on? Because trust me, if you don't know your stuff, if you haven't done your research, or if you don't have the practical experience, the reader's going to know. It's going to come across. It's going to come across that you're shallow, that you lack knowledge in this thing that you claim to be an expert in. It's going to come across in your writing because you can only write but so much because you can only write what you know. You can only write what you study, what you've researched, what you lived, what you've experienced. So if you're branding yourself as an expert, but experts not coming across in your writing, the reader's going to know, and your book is going to slow down quickly. So keep that in mind. We're talking planning and organization, folks. That's all we're talking. Letter H. Why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? That really ties into the previous one, letter G. What level of research have you done? And your level of, in letter F, your level of research, and letter E, your passion for the topic. Why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? Your first time around, unless you're known in your field, right? I mean, if you're, even if you're a novelist, if you're known as a novelist, then you've got a leg up. But let's say, you're writing for information. Just hypothetically, you're writing, you do informational writing. Um, if you've got a reputation in that field, people know you, then they're practically begging for the book because they know you. They know of you. They've heard of you because you have a reputation. You have a brand. People are familiar with your work. So they're practically begging, like, when's he gonna write a book? When's she gonna write a book? So that I could have him or her in my hand to refer to all the time. That's happened to me a lot in my life. People want that book because they've seen me deliver that workshop or deliver that keynote. When you going to convert this into a book? So that's what I did over the years. Everything that I showed you was once just a workshop. But over time, it became a book. But every one of those books I showed you, including the one you see, wrong hand, the one you see behind me, that was a workshop or a keynote address. And eventually I said, let me put it in writing and convert it into a book. Still a workshop, still a keynote, but now folks can take it home. See, and now they have it at their fingertips whenever they want it. So now, just to make the question concrete, why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? Because they've been exposed to what I've spoken on this topic, but they've also been exposed to my work on this topic. Doesn't mean the world knows, but there are people who know. So now I'm just going to expand that so that now it's in book form. And when they read it, I'm going to ensure that it comes across that I know what I'm talking about. So when you write your book, will it come across that you know what you're talking about? Because that's the whole objective, right? Why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? But let's look at it differently. Forget about everything I just said about your reputation, your brand, your familiarity, and all that. Let's look at the topic now. Why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? Is there an interest in your topic? See, we flipped it a little bit. Is there an interest in your topic? Is that what people are looking for? See, I don't. I'm not going to write a book if I'm the only one that's passionate about the topic, because that means I'm the only one that's going to see the book. No one's going to buy that. So there are things I'm sure that I want to write about, but I'm not convinced that there's a public out there that wants to read it. And you got to consider that. And that's not confined to the literary world. Movies, television, programming on the radio. You can't just because the program director on the radio and the producers and so forth really love this particular theme that they want to put out there. There's certain research they have to do. They call it market research to determine if there's a market out there, right? If there's people out there that are willing to consume it. Well, it works the same way with your topic. You may be passionate about a certain topic, but is there a public out there that has a passion for it? Or is there a public out there that you could convince them that they need this, which they don't realize they need? So they need your topic, they need your book, because you may be bringing something very new, something very novel that the world hasn't been exposed to yet, but they don't know that they need it. So are you someone who is able to not just put forth a great product, but convince the world, so to speak, that it needs your product? That matters. Again, it speaks to the second way of answering the question. Why would someone want to read what you will write on this topic? Right? So why would they want to read you, but why would they want to read your topic? Look at it both ways. It matters, right? Keep that in mind. Don't sit up there and write a 200 and 300 page book, and the only one that's passionate about the topic is you. because now you will have wasted your time. You probably waste money, right? Effort, energy, everything, and lose your enthusiasm when after you put forth all that time, maybe years writing your book, and now there's no interest in it. No publisher wants to touch it because you didn't do your homework. And the publisher's saying to you, oh, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to buy this. Right? Now, sometimes you can prove people wrong. When I was self-published, there was a large bookstore, which I'm going to keep nameless. And back in those days, I had to literally shop my book to bookstores as opposed to a publisher doing it because I was self-published. And this one large store in New York City, they said, no one's going to buy your book. They said, we got enough books on this topic. It was on parenting from an education standpoint. Lady said, no one's going to buy this book. I said, well, can you just give it a shot? That lady sold out of that book in the first few days she had it. But I had to be persuasive, not just give me a shot. I'm saying that for the sake of the video. I had to persuade her to take the book. The book sold out right away. The book sold out in every store it was sold in. And in fact, it became, for those of you out there that heard of Essence magazine, that's a Black woman's magazine, it became the Essence magazine #1 bestseller of a nonfiction author. But I might add, this is not a category that they had, but I'm gonna add it, an unknown author. Nobody knew me, but I knew how to hustle that book, right? I was on my grind. But see, that's for a later video, so we'll get to that, right? That's not for this video. Let's go. Letter I. How do you know that others will have a desire to read about this topic? Right. So that ties right into letter H. How do you know? Like, have you done any kind of just research? Have you surveyed anybody? Have you determined that there's some level of interest in this topic? You got to know that before you start writing a book. Unless you know you've got a bigger plan that you're going to get out here, get into the media, get into the internet, and you're going to persuade large numbers of people that your topic is going to make their lives better, right? Your topic is going to enhance their lives, or your topic is just going to bring enjoyment to their lives. However you're going to approach it. But you got to know that. You got to have that strategy. Because if that strategy doesn't exist, then again, you may write a book that's a good dust collector, right? It just sits in boxes or sits on shelves, and it just collects dust. No one's buying it, right? So how do you know that others will have a desire to read about this topic? Let me go back to my first book, A Black Parent's Handbook, to Educating Your Children. I knew there was a need for that book. I had taught for 2 years, and I said, man, and I had substitute taught. And I said, man, parents are in need. They're in need. I got a book. I got an idea. I was a new parent, but I didn't write it from the vantage point of a parent. I had an infant when I wrote that book. He's 33 now. I had an infant, but I didn't write it from the vantage point of me as parent. I wrote it from the vantage point of me as educator. I knew what the parent needed from the standpoint of an educator in terms of what their roles were at home with their children. So that's the perspective I wrote it. And that book sold like hotcakes for years. For years. Unknown author. How do you know that others will have a desire to read this topic? I knew that there were parents struggling across this country. Now, someone may be thinking, well, how'd you get it to parents across the country? You were unknown. You're going to have to wait till I get to video number 4, right? This is planning and organization, right? So keep that in mind. Let's go. Letter J. What distinguishes what you will write from everything that is already written on this topic? What a question. What a question. What distinguishes you? What distinguishes your writing? What sets you apart? And the question is comparable to a question, a similar question without thinking about writing a book. So let's look at just you, the individual. What makes you different from everybody else? Are you like you think it's 10 people in the room? Are you just like them? Hopefully not, right? There could be some overlap in certain areas. That's the reason that the 10 of you are friends. So there's commonality. But let's go beyond the commonality. What distinguishes you, which draws you into each other as friends? Because if we were all the same, there'd probably be no real attraction to one another. But when we're different, well, what is that? What's that distinguishes you from everybody else? Well, take that same line of thinking and apply it to this book you plan to write. What's going to make your book different? I want to show you one. I want to show you this again. The Assistant Principal 50 Critical Questions for Meaningful Leadership and Professional Growth. Let me tell you something. I'm telling you something I know because I'm in the book business, I'm in the book industry. Nothing like this has ever been written. Nothing. I did my homework. Nothing like this has ever been written, particularly for the assistant principal. There are not many books for the assistant principal, period. But I want to show you another one. If I can get my hands on it, here we go. The one I showed you before. Is my school a better school because I lead it? If I could copyright that question, I would, but I don't think I could because it's a title. You can't copyright a title. But let me tell you something. There's nothing else out here with this question or anything near it. Nothing. This is uniquely mine. If someone else wrote something comparable to it, there's probably nothing I could do with to them in terms of legally. But I certainly know that you you didn't do nothing but just Xerox mine to make yours, so to speak, right? It's just a carbon copy of what I did, right? So I'm saying to you, this book distinguished me from everybody else, but so did every other book I wrote. You Google me or even go to anywhere where books are sold and you do a search of me. I don't want to mention these companies on here, but you I don't mind mentioning Google, but some of these other companies I don't want to mention them. But you Google me and Google my books, and you'll see I make sure when I write something like this. Look at this title. I keep doing this backwards. Look at this title: The Assistant Principal Identity. Nobody's ever written anything like that. Protect the subtitle: Protecting Your Leadership Authenticity, Fervor, and Mindset. And then I said that in reverse order: protecting your leadership mindset, fervor, and authenticity. No one's writing that. No one's written that. That distinguishes me. The topic distinguishes my topic from everyone else's topic. You don't want to write what's already been written. You want to write something fresh and new, and people say, "Oh, I never heard this before." Not this is like what the other author said. You got to distinguish yourself. Let's go. Next one. We're getting there, y'all. Letter K. Who are you? Notice I put that in capital letters. Who are you, and why would anyone want to read your thoughts and ideas on this topic? So I'm building on the previous one when I said what distinguishes you. Now I'm saying, who are you? See, for me, as an author for principles, I was Principal Kafele or Baruti Kafele, turnaround principal, effective principal, award winning principal. I'm someone who had done this work. And I might say, principle of longevity. So not only did I do the work, but I did it for a long time. 14 years of principal leadership, 14 years of walking in and out of that building. I did it for a long time. Who are you? And why would anyone want to read your thoughts and ideas on this topic. Again, let's go back to my teacher books, which I wrote before I started writing leadership books. I was selected as the teacher of the year for my school, for my district, for my county, and for my state. I was New Jersey state finalist. I didn't win teacher of the year for the state, but I was a finalist for the state. That means I have credibility, somebody. I have authority, right? I've done the work. I am qualified to now write on the work, to speak on the work, because I have excelled at the work over a long period of time. The longevity matters. So I'm saying to you, who are you? I'm not saying you got to have all these awards, but I am going back to everything I said about expertise and credibility, etc. That matters. Do you have any credibility? Do you have expertise? Do you have is there something about your past, the work you've done, that people see you as a go-to? Like, wow, this person really knows their stuff. Now, again, the world's not going to know you, but enough people that do know you, that your core audience, when you begin to write your book, there's some people out there that are familiar with you. That matters. But see, when your your biography is in your book, is your biography able to state that you have accomplished X, Y, and Z? That matters. See, so you did it at a high level, and I keep using this word longevity, and you did it for a long time, not a one and done. You've done it for a while. That matters, because that means that whatever your success was, you sustained it over a period of time. All that matters. Who are you, and why would anyone want to read your thoughts and ideas on this topic? That matters. Does that mean that there are books out there of people that really haven't done anything worthy of note, but they still have great books? Yes, it does. They're out there, right? I'm not here to criticize it one iota, right? All I'm here to say is that's them. It worked for them. God bless them, right? But I'm saying to you, I'm coming from the vantage point of how I approached it. And I'm saying to you, have some credibility, particularly if you're writing for information, right? If you're writing for information, show us that you've done this. That's what I'm saying. Demonstrate for us that you've done this. Demonstrate for us that you've done this at a high level if you're going to tell other people how to do it. You're going to tell people how to do something and you never did it before? That's the point that I'm making. I'm not going to tell a teacher how to teach a classroom, and I didn't teach in classrooms at a high level. I'm not going to tell a principal how to lead a school, and I didn't lead a school at a high level. I'm not going to tell an assistant principal how to be an assistant principal, and I was not an effective assistant principal. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to make videos on how to be an effective speaker, and I'm not an effective speaker. I'm not going to make a video on telling you how to be a paid speaker and a booked speaker, one who's booked throughout the year, and I'm not booked and I'm not paid. I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to tell you or demonstrate for you how to do what I've done. And I'm recommending the same for you. Enough said, let's go. Letter L. Will you self-publish or will you seek a publisher? Notice it says more later, because I'm just kind of throwing this in here in the planning phase, but I'm not going to go into what that's about until video number 3. I think it's number 3, right? So all I want to say now is you need to be thinking about that. You need to be doing some research on that. Like what route will I go? Will I go the self-publishing route? What are the challenges and what are the obstacles to self-publishing? We'll get into that in that third video. Will I go the publisher route? What are the challenges? What are the pitfalls? What are the obstacles to using a publisher? Right? So I'm saying to you, do the research now. Video 3 will be out soon, and I'll give you my thoughts. but you need to be thinking about that now. When I wrote my first book, here was my mistake. I was just writing. And I said to myself, I literally said to myself, I was 30 years old at the time. And I said to myself, I will get to how it's going to be published later. Let me just get this book written. I didn't own a computer at the time, right? We're talking 1990. I didn't have my first PC yet. I didn't get my first PC until after the book was written in 91. So in 90, my book was written in a notebook. I still have the notebook. It's in the basement here, right? But it was handwritten in pencil so I could erase, right? Handwritten in pencil. That was my first book, right? And I still have it, but that was the manuscript. So once I finished, it's like, okay, I got this book written. How we gonna get this published? Then I had to figure it out. I'm saying to you, don't do it that way. You figure out ahead of time, which route am I going to go? Which route will my life be able to support? Because see, that's the difference between self-publishing and publishing is a major decision in your life, right? It's not some little decision like, am I going to eat a hot dog or a hamburger? No, this is a major decision because if you self-publish, you own the book. If you publish, if someone else publishes, they own the book, and you just get a little royalty from the work you put in. Now I'm gonna get more into that later, so don't get startled yet, but I will repeat myself. If you self-publish, you own it. But you got that means you're gonna fork all the finances to keep that book alive. And nobody you got nobody to support you as far as a publisher is concerned. But it's yours. You own it. But if you got a publisher, then they'll put muscle behind it. They'll put resources behind it, but they'll own it. It'll be your copyright, but it's their book, right? So that, but again, I just want to give you that. Want you to think about that. Want you to further explore it, and then in video, I think it's three. It is three. Then we'll get into it. Let's go. Letter M. We're halfway there. Will you use a professional editor? Notice it says more later. So that means I'm not getting into that here, but I'm giving it to you as food for thought. Will you use a professional editor? Because see, best friend doing the editing, mm-mm, unless best friend is a professional editor. Spouse, partner, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, cousin, nah, mm-mm, that's not editing. That's proofreading. Those are not the same thing, right? Unless they're professional editors. Now, when I wrote my first book, again, I was 30. I was unemployed. I was Mr. Mom while my wife went to work. We were newlyweds. So my wife went to work and I raised my infant son until she got home. So I didn't have any money. I didn't have money to hire no editor. I was self-published ultimately. So my mother and my wife read the manuscript. They're not professional editors. They just proofread it for grammar. But see, the editor is going to turn your manuscript into magic. They're going to perform magic, in some case, miracles. They're going to keep you in the book, but they're going to bring you to life. See, in a way that you probably cannot unless you're a professional editor. That's their job. That's their role. That's what they do. So I'm only asking you now, who will you use? Right? I'll break all that down later. That's why it says more later. Let's go. Next one. Here's another more later. We're talking planning and organization. How will you market and promote your book? More later. All I want you to do now is be thinking about it. I just want it here, right? How you gonna market your book? You could write the best book, man. Got the beautiful cover, fonts popping, but here's the thing. How you gonna get it out to the masses? How you gonna promote it? Because see, you only got but so many social media friends, right? You don't unless you're an influencer, right? And you got millions of friends, hundreds of thousands of friends and followers. But let's say that you're not a social media influencer and you got your 3 or 400. All right, of that 3 or 400, maybe you'll sell 30, 40 books, right? Because you know how the algorithms work. You got 3 or 400 friends. The 3 or 400 friends are not seeing your posts. You know that. Doesn't work that way. So maybe 30 or 40 of them do, and maybe of the 30 and 40, maybe 10 of them will buy your book, right? It depends, I'm just throwing numbers out there. So now how you going but how you going to go past your social media followers? That's what I'm asking. So that's what we're going to talk about when I get to video number 4. But now I just want you thinking about it, right? I want to hear, not just writing the book. Let's go. We getting there. Letter O. How will you get that's another more later? How will you get your book into the hands of your intended audience? Let me go here. Who's the audience, y'all? Let me get my light back. Who's the audience? The assistant principal. There are hundreds of thousands of assistant principals in America, because there's over 100,000 principals, but meaning there's a little over 100,000 schools, but there's only one principal in the school. But assistant principals, you got so many schools with multiple assistant principals. About 300,000 assistant principals in the country. That's my intended audience. But there's a secondary audience, the principal, because I don't want the assistant principal to read this and get excited about his or her role and how I need to transition into doing what Principal Kafele says, but I don't have the blessing of the principal. So the principal needs to be aware of what's in here too. So that's my secondary audience. But then I got a second secondary audience. So secondary audience part A and secondary audience part B. I don't want to say tertiary because it's not tertiary. It's secondary part A and part B. And that part B is the aspiring assistant principal. So those are all my audience for this book. The assistant principal primarily, the aspiring assistant principal, the one that wants to become, and the principal who's the supervisor of the assistant principal that needs to know what's in this book. That's hundreds of thousands of people, folks. How will I get my book into the hands of all those folks? I'm not going to tell you on this video. That I just want you to think about that. I want you thinking about that. So have an idea of how many people are out there in your market. Because see, when we write books, we're not writing for the world. You're writing for an intended audience. My books are not for everybody. My videos are not for everybody. My channels are not for everybody. My live streams are not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. You got to, who are you for? Who are your books for? See, you got to consider that. Then you got to go forth and do the research and how many of them folks are out there, because you can figure that out now. The internet is real. So now you can determine how many people are out there and what's that translate into. And then if you want to talk dollars and cents, what's that translate into money, depending on how many you can reach. But let's keep in mind, I told you I'm going to talk about it in video 3, but if you go the publishing route, you're not getting all that profit. You get a little bit of it. But we'll talk about the pluses to that later. But the publisher going to get the money. But remember, the publisher's spending money. Publisher's spending money to make your book, to get publicity for your book. Now, if you self-publish, you get all the money. However, you're spending money to get publicity for your book, to advertise for your book, right? So no matter which way you go, money's got to be spent, and it's going to impact your bottom line. So that's a more later. Let's go. Here's one that's not more later. What sort of device will you use? That matters. I use laptops. Every book I've written that I self-publish, laptop, and then what I publish, laptop. That's what I use. Some people use a computer. There's no preference of one over the other. Whatever you're most comfortable with. I've never owned a desktop. The only desktop I've ever used was it's at work when I was a principal. I'm a laptop guy. And even at work, I was more on my laptop than I was on the desktop. So most of what was on the desktop, I had to transfer to the laptop. I'm a laptop guy. So what will you use? Obviously, with a laptop, you can type anywhere. So, like my first two published books, I wrote them in a hotel room. Locked myself up in a hotel room for 10 days and just wrote. But I had a goal in mind. I said I had a target, 5,000 words a day, 50,000 words before I leave that hotel. 5,000 words per day. No sleep until I've hit 5,000. That was the way I did it. Right? So again, we're only talking planning now. So we'll get into all that as we advance. This is a four-part series. Um Next, letter Q, what software will you use? Now, because I'm a publisher now, I mean because I'm a published author now, I don't keep up with that. But that's not hard to do. It's just a matter of a Google search to find out what softwares are out there. I continue to use, like I type my manuscripts, obviously, but I continue to use Microsoft Word. That's what I use. Right? It's real simple. And I type it on Microsoft Word. The publisher typically wants 8.5 by 11 double space. So I don't have to set up any special margins, such as when I was self-published and I had to set it up camera ready. So the margins had to look just like the book, right? But we'll talk about that when we get to the publishing video. But for now, I'm just asking you the question, what software will you use? And consider what software you'll use as you do this. It's not a major decision to make, but it's just a consideration. Letter R, we're almost done. What's your time frame um, for completion? So we're gonna correct that in real time. And I'm so informal with my videos. So here we go. Let's do that again. What's your time frame for completion? That's important. When I wrote that book, those two books in the hotel, my time frame for completion was um 10 days. That was it. Less than 2 weeks. 10 days. That was my time frame. I wanted to knock those out quick, and here's why. Because when I wrote those two books, I was a principal. That was why. Right? I was a principal. So I needed to knock those out because when you're a principal, you don't have the summer to just chill on the beach. When you're a principal, you work all summer. You may have a week or two vacation, but you're planning for the beginning of the school year. In my case, September, other districts, August. So you're planning for the opening day and the rest of the school year. You don't have time to do much. So my vacation was that hotel writing that book back in them days. I could never live like that now. But back in those days, I was much younger. We're talking, yeah, we're talking almost 20 years ago. Almost a little over. No, almost 20 years ago. So that was a long time ago. Matter of fact, I'm saying almost 20 years ago, 2024, 2004. That was almost 20 years ago. So I'm bringing all these books that I'm using as my references, big boxes of books, to and just locking myself in the hotel. No television, no radio, no internet, no nothing, just writing. But that's how I did it. So my time frame was 10 days. Now, as life unfolded more and life got busier, then my time frame was longer. I would typically give myself about a year. I would say to the publisher, give me a year. I'd put a year in the contract, and I would typically get it done between 4 and 5 months. But the contract said I had a year. But once I get started, man, my life starts adjusting, and I'm all in on that book. I'm going at it. I'm a speaker now, as you all know. So I'm on the planes typing. I'm in the gates waiting for the flight typing. I'm in the hotel typing. I'm in the restaurant typing while I'm waiting for the waitress or waiter to bring the food. I'm typing. So I'm getting it done in far less time than what the contract said. But Again, before I start the writing, I have a sense of when it's going to get done. I'm not just going to start writing and say, whenever. No, we're not doing whatever, whenever. I want this book done because I want it on the market because I want folks to be able to benefit from the content. So that's how I'm doing that. Letter S. How much time can you devote to your book each day? So that ties right into the previous one, and you have to determine that. You got to look at your life. You got to look at what your life is comprised of, how much time you have. I think I need some water. Been running my mouth for an hour and 15 minutes nonstop. Nothing I'm not used to. I'm a speaker. That's what we do. But I always have a bottle of water on them stages, right? But but again, you have to figure that out, right? Because if you got a time frame, then you got to determine, okay, what does that translate into relative to how many words am I going to type per day or write per day, right? So that's plan. That's part of your planning. That's part of how you organize. Letter T, what format will you use? First person, second person, third person, informational, persuasive, entertain. Who you writing for, and what's your purpose for writing? Right? All my books, I write them in the first person. All of them. Every last one of them. They're self-reflective. The in terms of the questions, but then the commentary is in second person. So when I write the commentary, I'm writing directly to my audience. So so let me give you an example. We go right at the teacher at the assistant principal 50. So this question 9 says, how do the teachers I supervise perceive me as an instructional leader? So that's first person self-reflective. How do the teachers I supervise perceive me, the reader, as an instructional leader? But then I go on the right. Anyone can claim to be anything, but the facts will bear out the truth. In my mind, I was both an AP, both as an AP, and in my first few years of my principalship, an instructional leader. In fact, in those first couple of years of my principalship, I thought that I was the instructional leader, although I never asked the teachers I supervised whether they perceived me as such. And it goes on. My point is the text is in second person. I'm speaking directly to the reader. But the 50 questions that precede each sub area subtopic, I'm sorry, um those are written in second person. So the question in first, the text in second, right? It's late at night, y'all, excuse me for stumbling. um Late at night on a Sunday night at that. But anyway, you have to think about how are you going to do it, right? How are you going to write first person? That's pretty much you. It's all about you. Second person, it's all about them. You writing directly to them. And see, the reason I write in second person, I'm glad I just jogged my own memory. The reason I write in second person is because I want the reader to feel that Principal Kafele is speaking directly to me. That's why. So the first person, as far as the question, I want the reader to question oneself. I'm telling you, let me take these books again. I'm not boasting, I'm not bragging. In fact, let's do it this way. See all that, right? So every one of these books is written in this format. Every one, bar none. Every one of them is written in this format. So I want on all 50 books, I want the reader to read the question and internalize it. Ask oneself. There's a book here, and I don't even have to open the book on this one because it's the first question in the book, the Teacher 50 Critical Questions for Inspiring Classroom Excellence. The first question in the book says, are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? Let me say that again. Are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? And then from there, I go on and share the text. So here's the question I just read. Right? Are my students at an advantage? A little blurry there, because I am their teacher. And then it goes on. I says, an ongoing debate in the world of education revolves around the question of who or what has the biggest influence on a child's potential for classroom success. Some argue that students' home environment make the difference. Others argue the student's socioeconomic status, the overall school environment, or the classroom teacher. I contend that all of these variables have a significant influence on students, but none more so than you, the student's teacher. See, I'm writing in the second person, but the question is in the first. I don't do too much third person, but let's go over to informational, persuasive, and entertain. I'm writing informational. But make no mistake about it, there's some persuasion in there, because if a teacher's practice is one way and it needs to be a different way, I'm trying to convince you to do things differently. So there's persuasion in there, but then entertain. Every now and then I want to say something humorous, right? I want them to chuckle at some things. And people tell me, they said, man, you had me laughing on a certain paragraph, whatever it was, right? Well, that's intentional. So you got to think about all that. Again, we're talking about how you plan your book, how you organize yourself, how you organize in the whole process of writing a book before you put the first letter on the page. We almost there, y'all. Letter U. Who are you as a writer? Right? In other words, what kind of reputation do you have? See, previously I asked who are you in terms of the work you do, but I'm not asking you that now. I'm asking who are you as a writer? Do you have a reputation as a writer yet? Right? Do you have a brand as a writer? Or are you in the process of creating a brand as a writer? Do you have a certain skill set as a writer? Again, I'm not talking about your work now. I'm talking about you as a writer. So have you done any blogging? Have you written any articles? I'm a blogger. I can't tell you how many blog posts I've written. I'm a blogger, right? But I also have written umpteen articles, many articles over the world, over the years in professional journals, right? Professional magazines, professional education magazines. So, who are you as a writer? Is this your first time writing? Have you written any articles? Have you written any blog posts? Is there anything out there that someone knows that you already write? That's what I'm asking. Do you have any kind of reputation? Is there any brand? I have a brand as a writer, right? As an education writer. Do you have a brand? And have you developed a skill set for writing? These questions matter. And if you don't, then I would strongly recommend that in addition to writing the book, find out where those professional journals are in your field, in your industry, and see what's the procedure to writing some articles. Because the articles and the blog posts get you out there. They get your name out there. They get your writing out there. You don't have to go to a professional blogger. You can create your own blog post, a blog page, right? Google Blogs is one. It's very simple. That's what I use. Right? There are others that may look a little more fancy and all that kind of thing, but I like Google. So it's very quick. It's very easy to set up. It took me like 5 minutes to get the page going. Right. So I use Google. And when I write, typically we get a few thousand people that read my blog posts, and that helps get my word out. And then when they start sharing, particularly when I post it onto social media and they start sharing and reposting and retweeting and all that, that gets me out there more, my name, my writing out there, so that when the book comes, there's a level of familiarity. So you want to think about that as well. Letter V. Have you considered your brand as a writer? So I'm essentially asking you the same question, because I gave you a little bit more in letter U than I had planned to. But have you considered your brand as a writer? Like who do you want to be seen as? Right? See that first. Let me go back to you. Who are you as a writer? I'm asking who you are in real time. But letter V is saying, have you considered your brand? So it's not implying that you write. It's saying, okay, you want to write. but have you considered how you will be perceived as a writer? What will be your brand identity as a writer is what that's asking, right? Because there's this thing called brand identity and brand image. And brand identity and brand image are not synonymous. Your brand identity is how you craft yourself. That identity that you want people to see, because this is the way you're conveying or presenting yourself to the public. But your brand image is the way they perceive that. So imagine you said my brand is X, Y, and Z, but your public said that nah, your brand is A, B, and C, not X, Y, and Z. Well, then now there's a disconnect, right? A disconnect, a miss, if you will. And that's a problem. How big of a problem? Major. Because the public is not seeing you the way you see yourself. The public is not, said differently, the public is not seeing you the way you want to see yourself. They're seeing you as something very different. And it may not be the way you want to be seen. It may be a counterproductive way that they're seeing you. You got to fix that. So have you considered your brand as a writer, your brand identity, who you'll be writing for, what you'll be writing, and how you will be perceived? I'm an education writer, and if I wrote anything else, people, it would probably confuse people. It doesn't mean that I can't do it, but initially it's like that's Kafele, that's what he writes now, because people know I write for principals and assistant principals and teachers, and the beginning parents. So I start writing a book for computer scientists. You know what I'm saying? Then they may look at like, huh? What do he know about that to write a book, right? So you want to make sure you're good with that. Okay, I see I got another error here. No, I see what I did. We good. That was a mistake. Let's fix that right quick. There we go. W. Oh, let's get it again. The outline of your book, the starting place, brainstorming. The I should have written here more later, because in video number 2 we gonna break that down. But that is the starting place. Some people I know, they just start writing, and when they're new writers, I discourage it all the time. I say no. Mm-mm. Outline your book, inclusive of chapters and subchapters, right? Subtopics. Outline your book, including chapters and subtopics, right? And that may take time, but what it does, it gives you a template. And now, once that template is correct, although or is right where you need it to be, although the template can be revised over time, now you have a skeleton. And this is what made writing so easy for me, because I worked on that outline, that template over a period of time. And when I say period of time, it may have been months that I'm tweaking and I'm tweaking and I'm tweaking. And as I'm going through the world, I'm seeing things. I'm saying, ooh, that's something that needs to be in that book. And I'm hearing things. And I'm saying, ooh, that's something that needs to be in that book. So I'm not going to start writing right away, because I want to make sure that everything that I'm being exposed to in my travels, what I read, what I see, what I hear, whatever, something on television, something on radio, something on internet, something in a conversation with someone, something on a billboard, something that I've just observed, whatever it is, I'm like, ooh, there's an idea. Let me jot it down. So I'm creating this outline, this outline, this outline. I'm already giving you more than I wanted to, because this is in the next video. But I'm writing this outline. And once that outline is complete, ooh, now it's a template. And all I got to do is fill in the gaps. And that makes the writing so easy, because it has an outline, it has a template, and I'm just filling in gaps. And the outline tells me what to write. So if I wrote chapters and subtopics, the subtopic is saying, okay, this is the title. This is the subtitle. right? Here's the subtitle right here. Now just fill it in. Just fill it in. Made writing easy, but we're gonna get more into that in the next video. Let me go. We planning right now. X, the organization of the outline. So that's I told you you're gonna revise it. So you may have something in the outline that says chapter 3, right? And then as you're structuring your outline, you may conclude, no, that's chapter 7. That's not chapter 3. That's chapter 7, right? So you got to figure that out, right? So that's the organization. So you're gonna organize your outline, your template, so that it works for you toward writing the book. Let's go. We almost there. Two more. The revisions of the outline. I got way ahead of myself, so there's really nothing to say here. That's constantly restructuring that outline, constantly revising that outline until that outline is right there, right where you need it to be. And I'm gonna tell you something else. Even when you start writing the book, the outline might shift. Because remember, the outline, that's got the whole book right there from the introduction to the conclusion. So if you're writing the first chapter, you still got a lot of outline to fill in, and you may wind up tweaking that outline as you're writing the book simultaneously. Last one. Is this the right time for you to write a book? That's a big question. Letter Z. After all that planning, or throughout the planning, you got to ask yourself, is this, can I devote time to a book? Do I have time to write a book? And then within that, you're asking yourself the question, well, how much time do I need per day? Or how much time do I need per week? It's not like you got to write every day. Maybe you write once a week. Maybe 1 hour that you could block out one day during the week, or maybe 5 minutes each day, 10 minutes each day, right? You figure that out. I'm not gonna prescribe anything. You figure that out. But what I will say is you have to determine if you have time to write a book. Like, is this your season? Right. And kind of along those same lines, are you in a headspace to write a book? I can't just pick up any time and just write a book. It's usually, like with recording artists, I hear this all the time. Sometimes you get into a rhythm, a season, so to speak. And it's like, yeah, I'm in that groove. I got these thoughts. They're popping out of my head. I gotta write them. Like, let me show you something. This book, The Equity and Social Justice Education 50, Critical Questions for Improving Opportunities and Outcomes for Black Students. This book wasn't on my radar. I had no intentions of writing this book. This was back in 2020. George Floyd, murdered May 25th, 2020. I'm an educator. I looked at the aftermath of that murder through the lens of an educator, through the mind of an educator. And all of a sudden, I had a book in my mind. So let's say prior to May 25th, prior to George Floyd's murder, this book's not on my mind. It's not on my radar. I'm not thinking about this book. But George Floyd is murdered. America is on fire. People are protesting, they're rallying, they're marching, they're demonstrating all throughout the country. Teachers and administrators are writing me every day, 7 days a week, asking me for insight on what do we do when the children come back, because everybody thought schools were going to reopen, and some did, but most didn't. So many parents, I mean, not parents, so many teachers, particularly my white colleagues, and I'm just keeping it real with you, being honest, being truthful. Typically, my white colleagues were reaching out to me saying, do you have some advice? Like, what should I read? What do we do? How do I engage the students in conversation if they come back to school wanting to talk about the summer and what happened, what transpired, starting with George Floyd, and I might add Breonna Taylor. And I said, man, the volume of people asking me for advice, what to read, what to say, what to do. I said, I need to write a book about this. And the ideas were there, and hence this book was written and it became a bestseller. Right. So, in other words, I didn't write this book because over time I wanted to write a book on equity and social justice education. I wrote this book because there was a need demonstrated by the volume of people that were writing me on this computer to say, I need help. So I knew enough up here of a topic that I had no inclination of writing, that I went on and wrote. And here we are. See. So the time was right for me to write this book because it was on the heels of number one, George Floyd's murder, 9 minutes, 29 seconds, Minneapolis police officer, if I can keep it real. But then the aftermath, everything that was happening in the streets of America and the world, because it wasn't just America, there was outrage across the world. And I decided that because so many people were looking for advice, see if they didn't write me, I'm not writing this book. It wasn't me reacting to what happened. It was me reacting to the educators seeking advice. So I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. So is this the right time to write a book? You have to decide that, but it's a question to ask yourself, right? So we got through it. An hour and 36 minutes is where I'm at. This whole video, again, just to recap it: planning, organization. That's it. We didn't get into the writing. We didn't get into publishing. We didn't get into marketing. We didn't get into distribution. That's coming in videos 2, 3, and 4. But video 2, which will be soon, we'll talk about the writing process. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it beneficial. I hope it enhances your own process in writing your book, but in this case, planning for your book, organizing yourself for your book, which my hope is that your book will be a bestseller, because the title of this series is So You Want to Be a Best-Selling Author. Well, then that's my objective, to help you to become a best-selling author. But whether or not you become one is not up to me. Whether or not you become one is up to you and the person in your mirror. With that said, I'll see you soon for part 2.